Hello, everyone. Welcome to our final event of the week, Embracing Chaos. I'm Stephen Green. I'm a Principal Teaching Fellow in the Dyson School of Design Engineering. We've had an impressive and varied series of events this week shown on our summer show website, and you can still see all of these events via the videos. And if you've not done so already, I'd strongly encourage you to also spend some time viewing the showcased projects on the site. This represents the work of our graduating students. And today we're celebrating this class of 2020. All of our students graduating this year from Imperial's pioneering Dyson School of Design Engineering. The main part of our event today is a panel discussion about the programme between staff and students, hosted by two of my much more attractive colleagues, Dr. Sam Cooper, part of the academic team, and Anusha Sonthalia, who's a student director or co-director of the summer show. But first, we're very pleased to be joined by a special guest and friend of the school, whose business represents many of the qualities we value. Will Butler-Adams, OBE, CEO of Brompton Bicycles.
Hi there. So I've been asked to talk to you a little bit about chaos. We, if you're not familiar, make little folding bikes. Maybe there's one on my shirt somewhere. Maybe there isn't. That's the logo. And we make them here in London. I'm in the factory. We're producing about 350 bikes a day out there, producing about 60,000 bikes a year. They're pretty useful, and you see them whizzing around cities. We sell them in 47 countries, and it's a flipping laugh. So, but chaos is a funny thing. My observations, I've been at Brompton for 18 years, and when I joined, it was chaotic, and 18 years later, it's just as chaotic. When I started there, about 25 of us, then now about 450. And chaos is quite hard to maintain. It's a really important characteristic of a fun and interesting business of any description. And what I've sort of learned is that actually it doesn't happen naturally. That really we're creatures of habit. We like to get up in the morning, we like to have our alarm clock set, and then we poodle downstairs and we put the kettle on, then we do this, then we do that, then we come into work, we settle down, we have our tea at this time. So the funny thing is, in business, so many people think that their job is to create order. Yes, we need systems, we need process, we need project management, it all needs to be perfect. But actually, that isn't going to deliver innovation. That's not going to deliver creativity. So I think if you want a business that's going to innovate, actually, you want chaos, which scares people. And rightly so. If you don't have some level of disorder, I see my role in Brompton is to create disorder, not to create order. There are far more than enough people creating systems, processes, meetings, action lists, and we all get in our little rut. But that doesn't create new ideas. That doesn't create failure. That creates comfort and repeatability. And when we look at areas of real innovation and new thinking, sadly and often it comes out of crisis. I was listening to your head of school, Peter, who said that the Chinese word for crisis is both danger and opportunity. And looking back in history, it's through crisis that often the most innovation and new ideas have come. It doesn't matter whether that's the journey that space travel has been through most recently with Elon Musk and SpaceX. He's had some really chronic setbacks, but didn't give up. And from those setbacks, they've learned. And we've just and are going through a crisis at the moment. And of course, out of that crisis has been all sorts of tragedy, but also some really interesting, positive innovations and changes to how we go about our lives in a positive way, which hopefully we can take forward for years to come. So I think that this fear of chaos is wrong. And at university, you're given more freedom to be chaotic. You maybe have less responsibility, and that's a really positive, nurturing element of your education to try things, to poke your finger and burn it. That's not going to kill you. And through that disorder, you find new things. What you've got to do is take that sort of hunger for failure, for experimenting, for chaos, for doing something different for the hell of it, right the way through your career, and not allow yourselves to be dragged into the boring grey repeatability that somehow so many businesses, when they get big, just seem to sort of descend into. And you've got to keep causing problems and getting the odd grenade and lobbing it into the office and seeing what happens. So my message would be, if ever you find yourself in a position in the future of your career where you're just descending in some dismal grey rut, get the hell out. If you don't find yourself hurting, if you're not, permanently uncomfortable and feeling a little bit anxious, then life's getting boring and your career isn't got enough oomph. And you either need to change that or move somewhere where you are feeling slightly uncertain. I've been fiddling around with bicycles for 18 years and I'm still anxious, nervous, excited, making errors. And if I cease to do that, it's time for someone else to take over. So good luck with everything. I've been close to Imperial over the last year and watched some fantastic ideas and projects come to life. And there's much more global problems we have to solve, and they won't be solved by doing what we did yesterday. They'll be solved by coming up with new, vibrant, weird and wonderful ideas. So that's it from me. Good luck, everybody, those that are graduating and those that are beginning their journey, and I'll hand you back to Stephen.
Right, brilliant. Thanks very much, Will. That's a superb message, and I really enjoyed the strong emphasis on chaos, which is our theme for this year. And actually, I think chaos is one of the really tricky things for probably not just the students, but staff as well on our course to get comfortable with. I think you've delivered a fantastic endorsement of those qualities that we aspire to. So now what we're going to do is we're going to see a video teaser for all of the projects that you can look at in more detail on the website, and this will be followed by Sam and Anusha taking up their role as hosts.
Hi everyone, hope you enjoyed that little teaser showing off all the projects that we have in our summer show, and of course check out the rest of the website to see the other amazing work that we have. But on swiftly to our graduate symposium, which is going to be a bit of a conversation about what the last 4 years in design engineering have been like for us as students, and for some of the staff who Sam will be inviting on. I'm Anusha, I'm one of the show co-directors, and I'll let Sam introduce himself.
So good afternoon. Thanks so much, Anusha. My name's Sam Cooper, and I'm a lecturer in the department, but I'm also the admissions tutor. And hopefully this afternoon, we've got lots of people joining us who are offer holders for next year. So people who'll be coming along to join us in October. And hopefully they'll have some quite challenging questions for all of our graduates to try and find out what it's really like to come and participate in the chaos that is design engineering, the wonderful chaos that is design engineering. So with that, I'd like to also thank Will for his fantastic talk, a great provocation there. We, I think, are quite familiar as a department with the idea of chaos and have embraced it. And I think being in part of such a large organization as Imperial College, you can often feel like perhaps the ship is too large to change its course. So having the opportunity to be in a new department like the Dyson School, we hope we've really seized it to try and do things a bit differently. So I'm going to invite two of my colleagues who've been here from the really early days. The first one is Dr. Billy Wu. So Billy, if you could join us on the stage. And perhaps just a quick 2 words about who you are and what you do.
Hi, I'm Billy. I'm a senior lecturer in design engineering. I teach our first year materials and manufacturing course. And I've had the pleasure of seeing our graduating cohort from first year all the way up to graduation. So I'm here to create some chaos in this conversation.
Fantastic. Okay, thanks, Billy. And the next member of staff we're going to invite up is Dr. Mazdak Kajari. Mazdak, if you could just tell us quickly who you are and what you do.
Hi, everyone, wherever you are across the world. So I'm Mazdak Kajari. I'm a senior lecturer in School of Design Engineering. I'm also the senior tutor. So basically, I look after the pastoral support of our students. I teach, actually, I used to teach mechanics for the same cohort that actually are graduating. That was the first time I started my formal teaching. It was a lot of fun. I also teach the finite element analysis module. So I'm really glad that you let me join the panel.
Wonderful. Thank you, Mazdak. And lastly, for the staff team, a familiar face, our illustrious principal teaching fellow, Dr. Stephen Green. Welcome back, Stephen.
Thank you.
Okay, and now I'll hand back to Anusha, who's going to introduce some of our graduating student panelists.
Thanks, Sam. I'll start with my show co-host, Melissa, and I'll leave it to her to introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. I'm Melissa. I'm this year's show co-director, and I'm also graduating this year from design engineering.
Cool. And we also have Michael Hoffman, who's also been part of the show team.
Hello, everyone. I'm Michael. I'm heading up marketing for the summer show, and I've been involved in the Design Engineering Society, helping getting that up. Look forward to sharing my thoughts with you.
And we have 2 more students who've been really involved with the Dyson School since the start, which is Larka.
Hi, everyone. My name is Larka. I'm one of the graduates as well. And over the course of my 4 years in design engineering, I have been the event secretary for the DESOC, and I've also been one of the departmental representatives.
And last, but certainly not least, we also have Neil.
Hi everyone, I'm Neil. I'm also part of the class of 2020 graduating from design engineering. And this past year, I've also been the community events manager for the Departmental Design Engineering Society. So it's a pleasure to be here.
So we definitely have a bigger panel than we've had on any of our previous symposiums for the show, but hopefully it's a bit more fun and a bit more casual. We kind of want to celebrate the last 4 years that we've had. And I'll hand over to Sam to start off with some questions.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Anusha. So the format's going to be somewhat informal, and there's going to be some questions from staff to students asking them about their experience, but also we hope there's going to be some questions from the students back to the staff about our view of how things have gone. And then most importantly, as you can all see, those of us joining us from around the world, hopefully there'll be some great questions in the live chat as well, and we'll do our best to answer those. So to kick things off, our degree course is a very project-driven degree course. Lots and lots of project works. We try and not just focus around written exams, but we spend most of our time, in fact, most of our waking hours, as far as I understand it, during the degree, working on projects. So what I'd like to do firstly is go around the students and try and understand which of all the projects you did across your 4 years was your favorite, and why was that? And perhaps, Neil, we could start with you since you joined us last.
Absolutely, yeah. I think, I mean, maybe it's the obvious answer, but the solo projects that we've had in our final year, which is kind of your crowning piece of work that you do and is the biggest project in the course, was maybe my favorite. It's definitely the one where you really have all the skills you've gained over the last 4 years come together to pursue something you're interested in. So mine, which was looking at the tangible user interface for controlling music, really links in with my passion and love of music, which is something I've tried to tie into the course as much as possible. Though I also have to give a shout out to the second year Gizmo module, which is a mechatronics module, where you're also allowed so much freedom. At least in our case, we were able to just go off and spend a term working with other students on mechatronic devices that could do anything we wanted. So it's that scope for creativity and maybe chaos as well, where you're just allowed to pursue anything and pick up some skills as you do so.
Excellent. Thanks, Neil. Cracking answer there. Mel, perhaps we could move next to you.
Yeah, I'm with Neil on Gizmo. That was definitely my favorite one. It was like my first chance to explore physical computing and work with Arduino and Raspberry Pi. And yeah, that was something I really loved, and it was just such a fun project, and also learned so much from it. To
be a bit provocative, Mel, do you think you could have learnt those things from an exam-based module?
No, definitely not. Okay. Well,
clean answer, love it.
We did computing 1 before we did Gizmo, but definitely Gizmo was a way better lesson in computing.
Yeah. Building something real just allows so many more things to go wrong. Yeah. Answering an exam question is quite black and white.
Achieve something that you came up with, and trying to find a way to do that. That was the real learning curve.
Excellent. And Michael and Laka, are you on the same page here? Is this Gizmo all the way?
I quite like the Design 1 module that we had. It was very nice to be challenged for the first time, sort of coming in a project way, really being stretched by tutors, and it was quite a nice bonding experience for the first time, kind of working in a team of students. So it's quite nice to do that and then present to industry at the end, which I thought was quite powerful as a first year design engineering student.
For me, it was, I really enjoyed Gizmo as well, but I also enjoyed the second year module engineering design project, just because I thought that was very well-rounded design engineering project, really. You went from having to solve a problem, to present multiple solutions, and to then kind of build a prototype that worked in the end. And I thought that learning process was really interesting. And I know for myself, I learned a lot.
Great. Just an interesting show of hands from the students. Did any of you have any explicit teaching on design before you came to university? No. Oh, Michael, a little bit. But Michael, you cheated because you came from a previous university to university.
I also did DT before school.
Okay. And so did that involve, was there quite a lot of conceptual overlap with some of the design principles that you learned, or were they quite distinct?
Quite distinct. Design technology at school is quite practical. It's more about the execution of your idea, whereas
is that resistant material?
And whereas at Imperial and even in where I was before at Nottingham, it's very much more about thinking, and it's about systems of systems and how you actually integrate that and really solve a real world problem, which you don't really do properly at school.
Actually,
can I jump in on this?
Yeah, go for it, Stephen.
Sorry, Anusha.
That's all right. Go for it.
If I just jump in, I mean, because this does raise lots of interesting issues, and I would always like to take the opportunity to promote the idea that what we're doing on the design engineering course, it's in the title, is that we're integrating design and engineering, and I always think it's unhelpful to think of these subjects as separate subjects, and I think that what we do a lot of is try to integrate them. And going back to Sam's point about the emphasis on project work, I think about 80% of what you do on the 4 years of your program is project-based work. The other bit being towards exams, and projects they're proven to be one of the best ways to learn, and they also allow you to do some of the things that Will was excellently describing about embracing chaos, learning from mistakes. If you're studying towards design, you're towards exams, you're just interested in trying to achieve 100% mark and perfection. But chaos and design engineering isn't like that. We have to do things, learn from our mistakes, etc.
Absolutely, thank you.
I completely agree with what Stephen is saying in terms of teaching, and I had a question for all the panelists who might have been in more engineering backgrounds before they started to teach in the Dyson school. I know, props to Mazdak for doing a fantastic job of this in Mechanics 1, but I want to know how you had to change your teaching strategy to make it more project oriented, which is kind of what the Dyson school is all about. Mechanics, for example, is typically learning a bunch of equations and then being assessed through an exam, and then we got to do the catapult challenge, which was really, really fun. It'd be good to know kind of your thought process behind that and how you feel you have to change your assessments.
Yeah, I think actually that's a very good question. So you basically, you described it really well. So in our mechanics, usually the lectures, they would just go to textbook. You would learn a bunch of equations. Perhaps you see a few pictures of what a mechanism, a mechanical system would look like. And then you have to memorize a lot of things, and then you have an exam and off you go. But to be honest, what we did in our mechanics was based on my own experience in industry and then later in research. So I have 4 years industrial experience in petrochemical industry, in automotive industry before I rejoined academia. So I really learned that whatever I learned through my own studies, they were very useful, but they were quite abstract. So in order to put that into practice, I needed to recap. And then I realized that now I'm understanding it much better than when I was doing it. So that was my own experience. So I thought, why not to give our students the first-hand experience of something that we can do even in the class. They can see in the class and then they can take. I think this is a phrase that I usually use in the beginning of the introduction to mechanics, that Confucius says that if I remember, so let me remember it correctly. So if I tell you something, you will forget. If I show you something, you may remember. If I involve you, you will learn. So basically what we try to do is to involve students in the learning process. So you remember in our lectures, we always try to have some kind of demo. It could be just a simple elastic band with a ball at the end, but when we turn it, then we could discuss about the gravitational force, we could discuss about the centrifugal force and how these things are linked and the angle would change, and then all the equations would start to make sense. I think then embedding a project in the middle of the module was actually a useful way of putting all your learning in the first half of the term into practice, which I'm sure you can watch on the YouTube, so I'm not going to explain more about that.
Great, fantastic, Mazdak. That's a cracking answer. Billy, perhaps you could share your thoughts about the project-based learning in your ProdNat module.
Sure. So I teach the first year materials and manufacturing course where we teach students about different materials that they can use. So metals, polymers, what their properties are, and ultimately how we put them together. And one of the modules or courseworks that we do is called Revenge. Now, the students aren't getting revenge on each other. It's a reverse engineering of a product where we give them an item and they take it apart. And one of the things that I was keen to do in that module, which is very apt for this this webinar, is essentially when I gave the students a brief, it was quite open. Here's an item, knock yourself out. And a lot of students, when they first come in first year, I think they're a bit apprehensive about that. They like, step 1, do this, step 2, do this, step 3, do this. And adding in a bit of ambiguity, I think, is really important. I always like to tell this story, and I'll tell it again. But Andy Brand, who is one of our senior teaching fellows, I once asked him, like, what are our students going to be best at? We've got mechanical engineers who are great at pulling things apart, electrical engineers making circuits. And he basically thought about it and said, they're good at handling ambiguity. And I had to go away and think about that, but it's a really powerful skill, especially in today's world where there's so much uncertainty, that we're not just equipping you guys with technical skills, but hopefully good life skills as well, in terms of when things don't go right, do you know what to do and can you be the leaders in the field? So hopefully that amount of ambiguity we've had in the course hasn't been too unsettling for you guys. I'd be keen to hear what you think about the structured and unstructured nature of the course.
I think it ties really well in actually to a question that we have in the comments, but I think I found it here, about the structure of the course and bringing in chaos. I've felt obviously that we start off quite engineering focused, and then that can grow into sort of more and more ambiguous projects. And then solo project, you're literally let loose. You're allowed to do absolutely anything that you want. I don't know if you guys think our course could be more chaotic than it already is, but it'd be interesting to hear everyone's thoughts on that question. I'll start on one. Michael, do you want to take that?
Sure. Yeah, I think there's chaos is definitely occurs throughout our course. Mostly as we're a startup, so things are always changing. But I think in terms of design engineering led, there's a kind of like, what should you build and then how do you build it? And I think you kind of hold your hand a little bit as we go through. So in the first and second year, you kind of, what you need to do, we're teaching you how to do it. So you're quite guided in how you do it. And then by the end of in your fourth year, you don't know what you're going to make. You don't know how you're going to make it. But now you've got all the skills that you need to kind of embrace that chaos and kind of navigate to the end of a project. So I think for an undergraduate degree, this is kind of the perfect amount of chaos. I think you could always have more, but I think we've got a good amount for now.
Well, maybe if I could jump in really quickly.
Sorry, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, just to pick up also on Miles's question, I guess in a way, a lot of us have had the opportunity to actually, in the time we've been here, have input into redesigning the course. It's actually evolved a lot because it's a new course and because we're a new department. And I think as students, we often do try to find ways to maybe suggest having some sort of more positive chaos in the course, whether that's saying we want more freedom on this project. You're introduced to this ambiguity straight from the first year and learn to be comfortable with it. And maybe by the end, you're almost asking for more of that to be introduced because you realize how much you can learn when you're kind of thrown in the deep end.
I think a really good project, to kind of discuss on the back of that question is our Futures project, which was actually my favorite project that I was going to mention. I don't think anyone else did, but we were basically asked to design a product for 30 years in the future. And it was all about understanding, you can't really predict the future, but there's little cues that you can look into today and trying to make sense of what information we have today to make something for 30 years from now. I want to pass that question to Larka because she was actually in my group for Futures. If you have any thoughts on Futures and how that ambiguity and how you dealt with it.
Yeah, sure. Futures was it was a really interesting project. I also found it incredibly frustrating at times because it is really like this, how do you navigate the unknown? And I also think that ties in really well with our degree because often I found myself trying to navigate the unknown and even sometimes the unknown unknowns. But I think it's a learning experience. And I think a key thing to take from that is always like embracing the process. So you may not get the best outcome always, but you learn a lot through the process. And I really think that is a key takeaway from like the design engineering degree overall.
Great. So I think something that's coming through on the chat, people are very keen to know, and I know that all of our offer holders have been asking me repeatedly, what are you guys going to all go and do once you finish the degree? What jobs have you got, or internships or placements, or are you going off on an adventure to travel around the world? So I'd be absolutely fascinated to hear from each of you what it is you're going to do next. And maybe I'll start that one with Anusha.
It's a good question. It's hard to answer given the current post-pandemic world that we're graduating into.
Indeed.
But because I'm an international student, I'm taking kind of a safer route. I'm going to work in an engineering consultancy and do that for a few years, see if I can gain something from those experiences. And I think more on the theme of the question, what I want to do with the education that I've received is probably go into a startup. Okay. That's a very vague answer, I know, but I don't really have more than that yet. And I guess the fun part about all the structured education that we've just had, once you graduate, you have no structure anymore. So I guess it's time now to figure all that out. But I'll pass that question on to Mel next, if you want to answer.
Yeah, this is definitely the theme of chaos. And in my example, I don't really know yet. Been quite busy with trying to get the show together and trying to organize the end of the year. But for me, it's definitely the one thing I learned from being in design as well is you can probably do, like, all of us can probably do anything we want at any stage. So I'm not really that concerned about it. I think, like, yeah, definitely graduating into, like, in this COVID scenario and not knowing what the future world will look like and not knowing what the job market will look like. And I think it's all like an interesting journey that we all have to go through. So I'm just open to figuring out what I'm going to do next. From now on.
I do feel a great deal of sympathy with you guys having had 4 years of chaos in DE, and then suddenly the world gets turned on its head as soon as you finish, and you get thrown into a world of chaos afterwards. But I think you guys have got some wonderful skills, so hopefully you can come and make it a better place. Perhaps, Neil, you want to answer next?
Sure, yes. To an extent, I'm kind of in a similar boat as Melissa in that I don't have anything specific right now pinned down for the coming year. I had been thinking of continuing potentially with another master's or potentially even a PhD. So I've had some applications kind of in progress for that, and then kind of thought that I needed a bit more time to really make sure what I was maybe going into next was the right thing. So in my case, I was thinking of potentially going further down the music technology route, which I've explored a little bit on the course so far. And in that coming year, I'd quite like to maybe get some more varied experiences to the ones I've had before. So in the course, we all do a 6-month placement. And I actually had the possibility in my case of going back to that company, which was quite big. And I'd like to maybe get some varied experiences working more in music tech companies and maybe in a smaller startup or something along those lines as well, to help me kind of know exactly where I want to move next.
I think it's really interesting that you brought up placement, actually, because a lot of us are answering that we don't really know exactly what we want to do when we graduate. But I can definitely say what I want to do has massively changed from when I was a first-year student. So I'd be interested to know, since Michael and Larka are left to answer this question, not maybe specifically what it is you're going to be doing next, but how that idea has changed and maybe how placement actually influenced what that idea is, maybe starting with Michael.
Great question.
Sure. So on my placement, I was actually fortunate to take part at a project at Imperial. And next year, I'll be going to work for a large digital design consultancy. And so what I learned on my placement was really that I like the sweet spot between engineering and design, and I don't want to lose both. And so that was really what I wanted to then focus on to kind of bring that holistic view. And I chose consulting because I still want to have that variety of projects. I haven't found like I'm super passionate about sustainability or energy or automotive or whatever. I still want to have that kind of crazy chaos of projects when I leave. So that's kind of why I've chosen that route.
And Larka, what about you?
Yeah, so I did my placement in a design consultancy in London, and in that placement, I was having a more like industrial designer role. It was a great placement. I learned a lot, and it really helped me to gain a lot of confidence in like what I was creating and how to present stuff, and also just like taking chances really. So I ended up applying for a job in a large consultancy as well, similar to Michael. I wanted to have this kind of like flexibility around projects and keep on like exploring different areas. So that's what I'm going to be doing next.
Cool. That sounds awesome.
So we've got a provocative question coming in on the live chat from one of our star students, Amy Mather. And I'm going to point this one at Stephen, if you're ready. How much of the chaos in the course was designed, and how much of it was a result of the unexpected challenges that come up when designing a new course in the department?
Well, I've got one. I can excuse myself slightly because I joined the staff team after the course had started. So I joined a whole bunch of chaos, and I think as somebody mentioned earlier on, well, Neil made the excellent comment that he and many of the students have been involved in discussions about how the program evolves. So I would definitely want to get away from sort of any idea that any negative connotations of chaos. I think, and again, Will did a excellent job of highlighting some of the positive qualities of chaos. But I think to try and seriously address Amy's question, I think what I would say then is that what we're trying to do with the school is a difficult thing, because we are trying to break new ground, be really a sort of a pathfinder course for a future where people are increasingly recognizing the value of bringing different academic and professional disciplines together to produce innovation and impact in the world, and that's difficult to do. So there is chaos in that particular challenge, and that's exactly what we're trying to tackle. But like the design engineering process, it's also an iterative process. So we will continue to hugely value the thoughts and the ideas of students on how their learning experience is going, in the same way that we'll listen to industry partners and we'll learn from all of the specialist academic fields that sort of are represented amongst the course team.
Excellent. Thank you, Stephen. That's a tricky one. So something that's coming up in the chat now is, I think, one of the key ideas in our department, but it actually isn't necessarily written down anywhere. It's between the cracks. It's between the lines. What skills do you guys think that you've acquired that aren't necessarily strictly stated in the syllabus or in the mark schemes? And I think a way to look at that, for example, is in our fantastic student society, DesSoc, which is award-winning on campus and in a very tough pool, because Imperial's got some of the most student societies across any UK university. Michael, as someone who's been a real champion of DesSoc over the years, what do you think core sort of soft skills you've learned over the last 2 years that have been really critical to your development as a design engineer?
I think it kind of comes to how innovation happens, is that innovation is kind of very unplanned sometimes. And so it's all about that community aspect. It's about team working and exchanging ideas. And we try and kind of create this kind of culture of innovation, if you like, it's a kind of phrase that we often say. And it's less about, sometimes you're competitive and you're egging each other on, but sometimes it's also about critiquing each other's ideas and kind of questioning, why something is the way it is. And that all happens, over a cup of tea in a cafe, or it's, out on the playing fields in Hyde Park, or, going to a museum. And it's about kind of, absorbing all of the things that are around you. And that includes the incredible people that we have on the course.
Excellent. Thanks, Michael. I mean, I think, as you say, these skills are vital, right? These additional skills are vital. And I think that's something that we've seen as staff, just how much we've benefited as a department from your collective enthusiasm, often somewhat overwhelmed by it. And I think in this new world that we'll be entering, in the post-COVID world, we need to work out how to not just invigorate that, but to really take it to the next level. And hopefully a key aspect of that is that you guys are all going to come back as graduates and visit us as often as possible, chat to our current students, come to the shows, offer your valuable criticisms on the students' project work. So something that I'd quite like for our incoming cohort to understand is, what is a design engineering student like? What are they? And Celine has been asking us on the chat, and this is very difficult to do live. If you could describe a DE student or a DE graduate in 3 words, what would they be? Difficult question. Anusha, difficult questions. You love them. Straight to you.
I think definitely, I'm going to say, I guess we can hyphenate this word, but team player is the first one that comes to mind. And definitely because on that vein of soft skills, there's something that I've actually seen transform in our year since first year to now, is how people behave when working in a group. I think a lot of people that I might have been hesitant to work with in my first year at uni, I can like confidently say as graduates, I'd be happy to embark on a project with. And it's really amazing to see how, although you might think you're good at playing on a team because, I don't know, you played football when you were in school, trying to do a project and doing work in the professional context in a team is infinitely harder, especially when your teams are a little bit smaller. I'm going to bounce to Larka, speaking of football, for another word to add to my list. So I guess I'll do the first one, which is team player, and I hope you can add a second.
Yeah, so the reason she jumps to me is because I was the chair of the Women's Football Society at Imperial. So I've had a lot of team playing.
And design engineering football as well. You played on
Yeah,
that
I've been participating in that, which has been super fun. I think one of the best words is problem solvers, I'd say.
Another hyphenated one. Okay, love it.
Yeah, hyphenated words for the best. No, yeah, problem solving, definitely. I mean, that is just, I think the essence of the degree really is how do you go about solving problems, or like even finding areas in which you can apply your like solutions. So even though you might not have a problem, it's kind of like finding a place for your solution.
Yeah, that's a good second one. I think I've just thought while you're speaking of a third one, I think that would be good, which is champions, I guess. Not in the sense that like we win at everything, because we definitely don't, but more in the sense that more in the sense that we are really good at advocating, as Michael said, kind of if we're passionate about an idea. I think a design engineer is someone who can really go make that happen and make it known to everyone that we're going to make it happen. But yeah, I think that was a great question from Celine. If you don't mind, Sam, can I ask another one to the staff? Speaking of kind of how we've all changed since first year, I know that the staff have been part of the design engineering department from having only 1 year to teach, which was the first year students, and then growing that into a full department and having our first ever graduating class last year. I want to know how kind of the culture has changed and the environment has changed for better or worse. There's different things I know that happen when the school gets bigger and bigger. It'd be good to hear kind of what you guys think. I guess Sam can take that one to start with.
Well, how has it changed? I mean, just the way that you feel about the department is, I think, partly governed by the physical spaces that you interact with. And of course, us having moved from our slightly makeshift offices across from Prince's Gardens into our beautiful new building has had a huge impact on the way that I think we've all felt about the experience. And to see you lot all in the level 2 space at all hours of the day, working on projects, some of which are your coursework for the degree, some of which are societies and clubs that you're involved with, and some of which are just your own passion projects. I think, you know, one of my fantastic personal tutees is the president of the Ballooning Society. And so just in his own time, along with all the other coursework he's got to do, will make little robust electronics kits, launch a balloon up into the stratosphere, and travel all the way to the other side of the world, tracking it as he goes, just as a hobby. I think having that kind of culture in our department where people are really doing things. They're not just sitting around studying, I'm the maths lecturer, but they're not just sitting around studying maths equations and thinking about how to pass an engineering test. They're really thinking about how to do interesting projects. And I find that hugely inspiring. And that's a big part of what motivates me to come to work every day with a smile on my face. Billy, your thoughts about how the culture has changed. I think you've been here the longest of all of us. Is that right?
I was in the first batch of people that they let into the school. And I think over time, we've really built this kind of sense of community, both between the students and the staff. And as a new department or a startup, I think, especially being the department that we are creative. I think building that personality of what design engineering and what design engineering at Imperial is really important. I think some of these new traditions that we've created, we've got this annual event called Dies Elegantum. I always butcher the naming, but we all dress up in our best rags, both students and staff. We put on a good show in terms of the beverages and the food, and we just celebrate all the things that people have done after a hard year. So we give out awards, and I think that's a lovely thing to do. And we build every year stronger and stronger. There's a funny story that a couple of years ago, as we were doing the Elegance Day party, there was a disaster at an event, some sort of I won't go into the details, but it might have been some sort of fire. And we quickly ran away and we solved that problem. And then we came back to the party, and it just shows the resilience of the department, I think.
That was great. I feel like it added to it. I feel like it was just the kind of thing that we enjoy. Without the occasional fire, we'd get bored at parties.
Maybe Mazda's got thoughts as well.
Yeah, perhaps, especially as the senior tutor. How has our culture really evolved?
Well, I would say that obviously in the beginning we had quite a small school, small cohort, so it's more like small family. So that obviously gives an opportunity to know everyone much better. So as you grow bigger, so that can be a bit challenging, but obviously we are in the culture of innovation. So we always look for ways of making things work. So even if the numbers are bigger, but we are looking for ways that we can improve the interaction, we can make stronger community as we were in the beginning. So in the beginning, obviously it was much easier. We had only 40 or less than 40 students in the first cohort. And now, look, we have something close to 400, perhaps next year. But the building that we have, Sam hit the nail right on the head. So we have a fantastic building that really allows us to see students working there. So the kitchen that staff are using is in the same space where students are doing their projects. So obviously this is a great opportunity for us to see students to just have a random chat about what they're doing for their project. As a senior tutor, obviously, the work is a bit more challenging. So you have more students to look after, really. But we also have more fantastic colleagues who are really good in taking care of their students. So each colleague of mine have 5 to 15 students that they're looking after throughout the 4 years. And I know that all of them are doing a fantastic job. They have built a strong relationship with the students. And basically, they know all the aspects, not only academic, but also the pastoral aspects, and they are able to provide personal support to the students, which I think is a great culture that we have managed to build in the school.
I think it's easier to say it's definitely easier to say what stayed the same or improved. They're definitely the culture that everyone has picked up on, I think is massively important, and I think it's really impressive that this sort of ethos or culture has really stayed the same from those very early days. I wasn't there at the very beginning with Billy, but I think the culture that Peter Childs, the founder of the school, sort of established and set up has continued, and I can see in the comments. Amy says one of the best things about the school is the community, and I think that's really important. But I think also what's changed for me, of course, is the amazing building that we're not now in, but when we get back, we'll be in an amazing building. And I think what has also been really great to see is getting to this point of sort of, if you like, critical mass. As Mazda was saying, we've got more staff, we've got more students, and because we've been able to maintain and build that strong culture, that critical mass then becomes really exciting, because we're adding potential to do things with that amazing culture that's been established.
Yeah, I completely agree, and I wanted to say as well, Mazdak is completely right in saying that we've got a really fantastic team of tutors, and I think unlike any other department at Imperial, we're having a conversation right now, streaming it out to a bunch of people, a combination of lecturers and students, and this itself really well embodies kind of the relationship that we have with the staff in the department. It's a lot more personal, and as a consequence, I think we also are a lot more engaged in the work that we're doing at uni. I'm conscious of time. We've only got 10 minutes left. We've got a few questions in the comments about kind of what it's like to work to be a student in London, and also because we've got a lot of prospective students watching, I want to go around the students and kind of ask maybe to give us two things. So one is kind of like a unique experience, something great that you've had throughout uni, either a consequence of the brilliant department that we're a part of, or maybe because of the fact that we're situated in the middle of London. And then a second thing would be a piece of advice that you have for any of the prospective students who are going to be starting next year on the virtual platform. I'll start with Mel, if you want to take that. Sorry to put you on the spot.
Maybe I'll start with the advice for the incoming students. I actually had a chance to talk to some of the people who wanted to join Design at our interview days. And yeah, it was a great group of people and like very nice to speak to them. But one thing I would definitely say for me is stay open and kind of just don't have too many expectations of what this journey is going to be like, or what you're going to learn, or what projects you're going to do. Because I think the best thing you can take out of this degree is just staying open and like every day learning something new, or like trying different projects, and try and work with a variety of people and try and like get that kind of experience from them, because everyone here has something to offer from them, and I think that is what you can really learn and where you can get the most value from. And then from some memorable moments, one that comes into mind, and that happened in the first week of our degree, and that is the vinegar disaster of 2016. Yeah, maybe we shouldn't go into too much detail.
No, please do.
In our induction project, so our first project we did in the degree, we had to produce the loudest sound using a group of horns. So the actual task was to create the biggest flow of air. And my group came up with this idea of instead of doing it physically, to do it chemically. So we built this massive bomb in an empty water container, like this one of the 5-liter ones, and we filled it up with vinegar, and then threw in like a lot of baking powder, sodium, and we shook it up, and yeah, the seals weren't strong enough, and the thing exploded, and the room smelled of vinegar for a long time after.
So that was day one of your degree?
That was, I think, like day 3 or 4.
It was the end of week 1 when we had to present them, yeah.
Great.
I think it perfectly exemplifies the kind of, we really are given a lot of freedom to kind of try whatever you want, I guess. In the first week, we nearly broke a projector. But yeah, Michael, do you want to follow on from Mel on those same 2 questions?
Sure. So I would echo what Mel said, and I think it's all about the journey and being quite open-minded about, just drop all preconceptions you have about what you like, what you don't like, what you think you'll like. It's just enjoy every single moment and take the most out of the people and just the diversity of what you're going to do on the program. And then in terms of memories, I think the exhibition, the first ever exhibition we did, the showcase, and I think much of the same team, and it was just this kind of, it was the first big event in the Dyson building, and it was kind of this, we have arrived on the scene at Imperial moment, and we were showing our projects to industry, and we were mixing and mingling between staff and students and getting postgraduates involved, and it was kind of this really nice moment of celebration of, we're here on Exhibition Road, one of the best places in London, come and see what we do. It was a really fantastic day.
Yeah, awesome. That's also, a really fond memory for myself and Mel, who were also involved in that. Larka, on to you.
Yes, I think my biggest advice is learn from your peers. I was a bit worried when I first joined Imperial that it was going to be like a very competitive environment, and that I was going to be the worst student there. But I really I'd say that the lectures are amazing, but really focus on taking a lot of what you can from your students. Just ask them for help. Work hard in the group projects, because you learn so much from them. And everybody in my year has been super nice and super helpful. So I'd really think that is one of the key advices I can give, is learn from your peers. I think that one of my greatest kind of like memories is the first like kind of party we had in design engineering department. It was like the first Dies Elegantarium. I think Billy spoke about that before. We get a few drinks and people dress up, and it was just like super fun, like a small family, and all the students went out afterwards, and that was just like a great experience. I think I have a second advice actually. To gain a lot from like the wider Imperial community. Like there are so many opportunities that you should like kind of like grasp. Just go for it, both within the department, but also like in the wider college, because there are like, you can do so many different things, and you should really make the most of it in the 4 years that you're there.
Awesome. Neil?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I can only really echo some of the things that have already been said. I mean, yeah, in terms of advice, I think what Larka just mentioned about making the most of Imperial at large, as well as just the department. I mean, from my time, some really memorable things have been being involved with the Photography Society and using their darkroom to develop film prints, but also to pick up on that thing about being in London as well. And there's so many other things. I mean, we're just around the corner from museums like the V&A, the Design Museum, and there's so many wonderful things to explore and to be inspired by. I also see a comment in the chat about how the other courses in the department might have inspired us, IDE and GID, which are on with the RCA. And same thing, I mean, being right next to the Royal College of Art and having the proximity to those students and seeing their work has also been hugely inspiring. So I guess my advice is just try to soak it all in and catch as much as you can and enjoy it. And one more thing to echo maybe as well is the way that, as I think lots of the staff just mentioned earlier, how all of that is then brought together in our building, which for me, one of the highlights working as the community events manager in the Departmental Society has been trying to encourage all the different groups in our department, whether it's the postgrad students, the staff, and us undergrads, to come together and to celebrate that, whether that's through a party or even through a more relaxed event like just a tea and coffee or a, you know, things that are just kind of informal. But that studio culture is a big part of design engineering life.
Yeah, it's really nice to, I think, reflect. If we have time, I might do a really quick memory that I have as well, which is from first year electronics, maybe second year electronics, can't remember which. And everyone was freaking out about doing our project, and we were working in the electronics lab really late, which closes typically at around 10 because the technicians have to leave. And Peter Chung, who's now our head of school, actually came in to keep the lab open for all of us and stayed really late and ordered pizza for all the students who were working late on this deadline for the next day. And I think it really exemplifies kind of the commitment that we're lucky enough to have from the staff in the department. And in general, just the kind of incredible culture that we're lucky enough to be a part of here. And final piece of advice, I think, before I hand off to Sam to kind of say goodbye from the side of the staff, is that don't be afraid. I think we all come into Imperial quite often as perfectionists because we're quite used to being kind of doing quite well at school. And that may not be the case when you come to Imperial, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. Everything you do is kind of a learning experience, and you're never going to lose out in a school environment because you don't have anyone to answer to. You're doing these projects to learn. You're not doing these projects for an industry necessarily, maybe until you get to your fourth year. So yeah, just don't be afraid to kind of take risks when you're at uni. And also for all the prospective students who are in the comments and haven't had their questions answered, don't be afraid to kind of reach out to any of us, ask us questions. I'm sure you can find any of us, and all the students here can agree. You can find us all on Facebook or through the Imperial website. Just ping us an email, send us a message. We're happy to, help you out and make you part of the family that we've been so lucky to be a part of ourselves.
Wonderful.
Yeah, Sam, on to you for any last bits from the staff on our last minute.
Fantastic last message, Anusha. Thank you so much. Thank you to all of the panelists for joining us today, but also for all of the people who've done work behind the scenes, not just on this particular video, but on the show as a whole over the last week. It's been phenomenal. For all those watching at home, if you haven't yet been to the website to see how our students are showcasing their projects, you must. It's a really fantastic thing to see. And for all of those students who are thinking about coming to join us either next year or either this October or next year, please get in touch. We can put you in touch with our current students. We can put you in touch with some of the people you're seeing today. If you've got questions, we are about to approach steady state. So although we are growing as a school, that's actually going to end up being just 90 students a year. So we hope very much we have this design intention in mind that it will always be quite an intimate family compared to some much larger engineering departments around the country. And we think there's huge benefit to be had from that. And I hope you can see the real genuine sense of sadness that we have to lose these guys this year and they get to move off into the world. But we're confident they'll be back to come and see us in future and tell us about all the adventures they've been on. So with that, thank you so much to everyone watching at home.
Guys.
Thanks
for taking time out to watch, and thanks for everyone who's kind of joined on this stream.
And come and see us again. Take care.